one client who had done really well with growing their business, but they shared that when they were really starting out, that they basically canceled Thanksgiving, and the whole family had to work in the garage doing fulfillment. I said we should add that to the press release that we were working on, and they were like really against it because they're like, oh, it doesn't seem professional. And we did it. And Inc. magazine ended up writing a 2-page article about them and their growth. The client still didn't figure out, why is that interesting? And I'm just like, every entrepreneur identifies with people making blunders or being overwhelmed. And it's one of the times where the whole family rallies together. And it's something that people who are entrepreneurs experience.
Hey there, what's up? It's Jason Wojo. Welcome back to another great episode of the Life Inner Show. I am super excited about the episode we have in store for you today. I am speaking with Mickie Kennedy about PR. Now, you may have a business, you may be thinking about launching a business, you may have been exposed to PR messages in the past and not even realized it. And in this episode today, we're going to talk about how do you leverage PR? Why is it important for a business owner to consider PR? And what are some of the other options out there for marketing? And why you should consider this as one of the viable ways to get the name of your business, to get your message, and to expand your reach with your customers and clients. Mickie, welcome to the Life Inner Show, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm super excited. So we had an in-depth conversation not too long ago about PR, and I essentially conveyed to you how little I knew about PR. And we had I'd say a lackluster experience with PR in the past. And this is why I'm so interested in this conversation today, because it seems like it's one of those things. And by the way, marketing, like in general, can be discouraging for people, and the results seem to widely vary. And so let's kind of dive into this topic of PR. Describe for the audience who is not familiar with this process and what it entails. Like, what does that actually look like?
Right. So PR consists of, connecting with the media. And it can be done through one-on-one pitching, through email or over the phone. And the area that I work with is sending out press releases. And a lot of people consider it a little more passive than doing direct pitches. But I started out 27 years ago doing it for another company, and I got really good at it. I would send out the same releases that everyone else was sending out, and nothing was happening. And then I just realized, looking at what journalists were publishing, what they're interested in. And, for me, I discovered it was a story. Journalists like to tell a story arc, even in the smallest of print spaces. And so I sort of peeled back what we were doing. I was working for a telecom research company as employee number 3. We were a startup, and we published data. We just thought if we dumped the data on the media, they would publish it. But you kind of have to, go through the data and find the anomalies and, tell the story of why, for example, one country in the Caribbean accounted for more inbound and outbound traffic to the United States than all other Caribbean countries combined. And at the time, it was a center for 1-900 numbers, which were really popular, where people would pay, 75 cents to $1 to, talk to a psychic or have their horoscopes written, or things like that over the phone. And I would then start sharing those messages to the media, and we got picked up routinely by The Economist, Financial Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. And it was just like we had flipped a switch. And I was just like, for a company that at the time had 3 employees, to be able to drive, these number of eyeballs, which resulted in phone calls and orders. We were just selling our data to other telecom companies at the time. And all of a sudden, we were getting orders from investment bankers and other types of people who found telecom data as something that they thought would be interesting as another metric to use. And so coming from that, I was just energized and wanted to help other small businesses, get the messaging out through press releases. And I'm still 20 some years later, I'm still trying to educate people on how valuable press releases can be. But that being said, it has to be the right press release. As I found out, doing the average press release that everybody else in the market was doing wasn't really generating results, but really, being creative and trying to find out where there's a story that the media would want to engage in. That was like the real creative spark for me to try to motivate people to do different types of releases and more meaningful types of releases. And even people who feel like they're not newsworthy at all, if you peel back that onion and put the creative hat on, you can do newsworthy press releases. And I really love educating people on what those opportunities look like.
So, man, you said a lot there. I want to unpack some of that. So, first of all, you said you reach out to media. Who is media? Like, what do you consider media? Because, back in the day, it feels like, okay, these were newspapers and magazines and obviously, like, now we're in a digital world. Like, does this include websites? Is it the
Yes.
online version? Like, so who are you actually reaching out to? And I'm assuming there's got to be some specificity in, like, the targeting, like for a certain kind of press release, you go to a different set of media or a different list. Is that accurate?
Right. So the way it works is all of our releases go out through PR Newswire, which is the oldest and largest wire of press releases. There's basically a duopoly in the United States, the other one being Business Wire. And they're both expensive. To move like a 600-word press release nationally through PR Newswire, it's like, I think, over $1,600. But through us, the same press release would be like a third of that price, mostly because we represent small businesses. And when I got started, I was just an email database of people that I connected with. And the Newswire liked what we were doing and realized that, our customers, which are entrepreneurs and small businesses that do on average 2 to 4 releases a year, aren't really someone that their salespeople are interested in spending time working with, because they just don't represent the dollars. And so because we buy like 10,000 releases a year, we do have really great pricing. And as a result, we're substantially cheaper than going through the Newswire. But that being said, who does it go with the Newswire? So it goes out nationally to lots of newspapers, TV, radio, all of those types. But the release gets tagged by industry. And so, for example, if you're say in the fashion industry, it would be tagged for fashion people, and maybe it's ready to wear stuff that is on, at retail outlets. So you may target retail as well as fashion, and within a lot of these targeting includes a lot of additional types of media. For example, in the fashion world, there's lots of Instagram influencers who have media credentials at the wire. So they're receiving releases, even in retail. One of the people I follow on TikTok, which is still around as of today, but we don't know long
Right.
term, it's called Snackalator, and he does a weekly roundup of new snacks that are hitting shelves, and he pulls all of his photos from press releases, and that's where he finds out about these things that are hitting store shelves. And that's a different type of media than we saw when I started 20 years ago. I think the big thing probably 15 plus years ago was bloggers, and at first the Wire didn't know what to do with them. Do we give them press credentials? And the importance of press credentials is you get a login at the Wire. You can view everything on the Wire publicly, but the credentials allows you to go in and customize your feed. So, for example, I mentioned fashion before. You can look at a fashion feed of just fashion headlines and then drill down. But even more importantly, you can tailor that feed to exclude certain keywords or include certain keywords. So it's a very tailored feed that you see with your credentials on the Wire. And fortunately, the Newswire did come around to including bloggers 15 plus years ago, largely after a conversation I had with them, pointing out that in some areas, for example, the automotive trade at the time, there was an automotive blog that had more traffic than the leading trade publication, which I think it was Crane's Auto News at the time. And I was just like, you may not consider this media, but media is evolving, and obviously this person has a lot of sway and really does deserve access to the wire. And the wire now is just like very accepting of all different types of media. I think that a lot of people aren't really getting their media from newspapers traditionally like they used to. Some may get it from online feed aggregators like Google News or Apple News products and things like that. But I also think a lot of people are just seeing stuff in their Instagram or their TikToks or even their Facebook feeds. And so it is evolving. And I think that as a result of that, there's a lot more opportunities because there's a lot of more people who are really looking for content. And if you have compelling content, then you could have some of these places pick you up, and really great things can happen.
Let me pause you, man, because you're going through a lot of stuff that I want to make sure the audience gets. So the first thing is that when you're making a press release, it's you tag or you classify or categorize your post with certain keywords, et cetera, and then the person looking to pick up that news is the one that will do the screening for that. You're not selectively choosing, oh, I'm going to send this to Entrepreneur Magazine, I'm going to send this to USA Today. Like you just put it out there and then they go find it, and if it meets their criteria. Is that right?
Right. And when you do place the order, you select like industry categories. So if you're looking for entrepreneur and marketing and business stuff like that, there's an advertising and marketing category. There's also a business category that includes a lot of your business magazines and stuff like that. So you would select the categories that are relevant for your announcement. And that does get tagged at the wire for those appropriate industries as well. Let's say you didn't choose the best categories yourself when you sent the release over. The Wire is also looking at the release, and they recognize that they're doing an advantage to their journalists by doing additional tagging if necessary. So if they say, "Hey, this person didn't indicate that robotics, and we really think that this would be a great thing, so we're going to help out the robotics journalist on the Wire by additionally tagging it." So don't necessarily feel like it's ironclad, because the Wire really does a really good job of making sure that it's appropriately tagged, and if it needs additional tags, they'll definitely include those.
So that makes a lot of sense, and that's cool. So my next thought is, like, if I'm a small business owner, I'm wondering, like, well, number one, what makes a good PR release? Like, what is worthy enough that someone would care about, number one? And because I'm just this little company, and I have 5 employees, and we have a local plumbing company, or we're a whatever, we flip houses. And so how does that actually translate into the news? And are there things that really, or businesses perhaps, that like don't really have a good match for what PR releases are looking for?
Right. So occasionally there are people for whom there just isn't a perfect match. It really depends on what the goal of your PR campaign is. And, I would say predominantly the goal is try to get more leads and try to get more customers. But that's not always the goal. I had a local auto repair shop in Pennsylvania that came to me through an SEO friend that I had, and they had a new domain name because their old one was tied to the Yellow Pages. And I don't know what happened there, but their domain name just went dark and they couldn't recover it. And so they had a new domain name, and they were not ranking when you did their city plus car repairs and things like that. And the SEO person said, we're really looking for authoritative links, particularly in the auto industry. And, the auto trades, their customers aren't reading those. They're not reading Crane's Auto News and these other places. So their goal was a little bit different. But in that case, what could a local auto repair shop in Pennsylvania say that would be meaningful to the auto industry? And in their case, I thought that the no-brainer would be, let's do a survey in the automotive arena of other auto repair repair shops. And, they're like, well, we don't know, these guys to send a survey out to. And I'm just like, you don't need to. Yeah. I asked if they belong to any associations. They did belong to an independent association, an association of independent auto repair shops. And so we just sent an email to them saying, hey, we've got this survey. Here's the link. We would like you to send it to your members. In exchange for that, we'll mention you in a press release we'll be issuing over the wire. Small and independent trade associations do not get a lot of media attention themselves. And so when they see something like that, they see that as a possible opportunity to get a little bit of a name for themselves in subsequent articles as well. I think in that case, they asked if they could co-brand the survey. And I think we said, sure, as long as they weren't like, trying to overtake things and, change the questions and things like that. It just gave them a little bit more exposure. And also, I think for the auto repair shop, it gave them a little more credibility being so closely aligned with them. And so the survey had 16 questions, 4 questions on each page, and SurveyMonkey, very simple to do. The hard part's coming up with meaningful questions. You want to ask stuff that's very timely today, as well as, perhaps some evergreen things that are going on in the industry. And on the last page, the last 4 questions, I often tell people you can be a little creative there. You can ask a crazy left field question. You've already got 75% of their responses, so if they just quit, you still got those. But we asked, what was the strangest thing a customer left in their car while being repaired? And it was just an open field where they could write a sentence or two. And that was what we ended up going with as the article, the press release. And we did a roundup, I think, of 25 of the most interesting responses. Statistically, none of them were relevant. I don't think anybody listed the same thing twice, but it was just a fun roundup. We had a link to all the questions and responses. And on that page, I think we had 50 to 70 of these strange things people left. And we sent the release out. We had an amazing quote, providing a little analysis about these strange instances and things like that, because, releasing the release, you're the expert. So you can put a meaningful quote in there. You want to say something that can't easily be paraphrased, whether it's being creative or speaking with really tight concision. You really want the quote to sort of pop because that's what, a journalist can sort of build a story around. And it did really well. I think we got over a dozen auto industry places that picked it up. And because we had that roundup on the website of all of the responses, and we only highlighted, I think, 20 or so in the press release, a lot of people linked to it. And so all of a sudden we had these, I think we had 8 of these auto places linking directly to their website. And, within a month or two, they were ranking #1 in their area for, their local area car repairs and stuff. It also got picked up in their local paper, which I wasn't certain that was going to happen. But so it did get in front of some potential customers as well as existing customers, because they said a lot of people talked about it over the next few weeks coming in to get their oil changes and things like that. I thought it was really funny, because there was like anecdotes of people like leaving a boa constrictor in a car. There was a family that left an urn in the trunk and had to retrieve it for a memorial, and all kinds of little fun things. And I think that it did so well because it was like really, interesting, quirky little responses. And I think the human interest element of it, these little mistakes that people do are really interesting. And I think people really identify with things that are out of the ordinary. And I think that's why it did so well. But I've also had that technique work really well in other industries as well, where you ask questions that are not maybe as tantalizing or quirky or things like that. But, maybe coming out of the pandemic, your industry is having difficulty with people going back into the workplace, or maybe how do you solve a culture when people are working from home so much?
So how but I'm not fully following you on, like, so you're a house flipper, for instance. Like, how would a survey, like, tell me, like, give me an example of like how a survey would help you.
Right. So you would get articles written about you. And so if you're a house flipper, and let's say that you're going to people's homes who are retired, and you're wanting to do a deal with them to buy their home, and people are just like, is this person reputable or not? Having yourself in lots of articles and having that in a folder that you share with people are going to make them feel very comfortable. Third-party corroboration or social proof, when a journalist writes an article about you, it really does, it's a signal of trust, and people feel very comfortable dealing with businesses who are getting media attention. So if you're a house flipper, you're going to find that people are more willing to call you and ask about the process when you send the postcards or you contact them, because you have that information. And when they do research on you, you have all of that on your website. It's really going to make them feel like, this is a reputable person. When they say that they're, putting an offer on my home, they're going to
So it's credibility. Yeah, you're building credibility.
Exactly.
Hey, so let me interrupt this episode. And before we get back into it, here's what I want to share with you guys. One of the things that we do throughout the year, all over the country, is we do this event called Business Builder Event. This is the event where we literally outline, help you figure out and create a business that you love and a business that support your life. One of the things that we found over the years that many people become basically a slave or work an employee to their business, and they're working so much in their business that they don't actually get to live their life. And in this particular workshop, we help you redesign that, a business that supports your life. So what do you want to have for them, Bojo? What do we have for them because of that?
Man, well, Peter, because they are loyal listeners, and I know they're tuned in every week, and they've told everyone in their life about the Life in Air Show podcast, we have a very, very special offer for you. Now, by the way, I don't know how long we're going to offer this, so this isn't forever. But if you go to lifeinair.com right now and you go to the events tab and then you go to the Business Builder Workshop, you can, when you pick the event you want, when you go to that checkout page, there's a little place right there. It says enter promo code. And guess what? We have a promo code for you for 50. That's 50, half. 50% off the ticket for the Business Builder Workshop by entering the promo code podcast into the promo code field. Instantly, you'll get a 50% savings. You'll see it right there on the screen, and you will be registered for that event. And here's the cool thing. You will be off to the races to create a life and a business that complement each other for the first time, maybe ever. And it's amazing.
One more thing I want to share with you before we jump back into the episode is this. One of the participants at our recent podcast, he was in a hot seat. We do these hot seats in front of the room, and we kind of dissect their business. And one suggestion that he got them, he made the change, went home, made the change, and pretty much within a few months went into stage 4, meaning into his business, that the business basically supported his life. The income that was coming, the cash flow that was coming into his business, by making that one change, started living in a way that he doesn't have to work for the business works for him. So yes. I would encourage you guys, head over to the website, learn about this event, type in podcast, and we'll see you on the next event. Now, let's get back into the episode.
Here's what I'm wondering, it sounds like it's a very, it's a chance, right? Like, so you may or may not get picked up by somebody. What are some of the things that, those and maybe it varies by industry, but what are some of the things that a small business owner should consider sending out for a press release that might get published or picked up?
Sure. So I think one of the most common types of press releases that we see is, a new product that someone's releasing in the marketplace, or a new service that they're offering. And, it's usually, here's the product, here's the features, and here's a page to learn more or buy it. And I think for a lot of people, you really have to sort of figure out, what would a journalist want to be added there to make that more meaningful? And I go back to the story arc that journalists like. In the case of like a product launch or a new service, what are the stakes of that product? So if you have a logistics solution for your industry, what are the stakes for someone who doesn't have a product like yours? Is there a certain failure rate in your industry, a data point that you could incorporate in there that would really show the stakes of why this is important? Do you have a use case study, someone who tried the product? What were their results, and getting a quote from them? That's more of a story arc. It's just, instead of here's a product, here's a list of features, here's a product. This is what it promises. This is a company that had this obstacle. This was their experience and what they saw as a result. And here's a quote by them. That's more of a story arc, and it builds more of what a journalist is looking for. So sometimes you just have to look at, not necessarily what your goal is, it's just sell more, but, taking into account what the journalist is doing. They're a gatekeeper, and they're trying to figure out what information is either going to entertain or educate or even delight their customers or their audience. And as a result, if you satisfy that, then they're more likely to take that release and turn it into a story or an article. In addition, there are perhaps industry trends and things like that. So if you're, a house flipper, maybe sending to your local media in particular, because generally most people work in a geographically defined area. And we do offer local saturation at e-releases for sending out releases. But what are some of the trends that people should consider in remodeling going forward? The era of maybe travertine marble is over. What are some things that, if someone's looking to remodel in their home, that they should consider that will probably last 10, 15, 20 years without necessarily seeming to really date your place? And that's a way in which to sort of stand out as an expert, in some respects within your industry of, remodeling or flipping homes and things like that. Also, in addition to that, it's like, what's your story? Sometimes some of the most interesting aspects of someone is how they sort of, fell into their job or fell into their career. There's, everybody who goes on Shark Tank shares how, they came to start this business or this product, and it's usually, vulnerable. It's like, I lost my job. I had this hobby. I was wondering if I could turn the hobby into a business, or, I lost my spouse, and, they're vulnerable to sharing something. And I knew that I had to step up and, make the money. And so I did this thing. And so, being authentic, perhaps even inspirational, but most importantly, being vulnerable and just sharing your journey is important. And it really makes, it humanizes you. It gives that human interest element. And I know that a lot of small businesses often like to appear more corporate and more professional. And, they would never share something so personal as, maybe something, a health scare or something that they went through. But, people like those things. And I do challenge people to do an audit and see if there's something there that, people might find interesting. Sometimes it may not be important enough to be the entire message, but every time you issue a release, there's a boilerplate at the end. It's the about section. So it's usually about company or about person. And, put that story there, create an elevator pitch that's just a few sentences of something that's really meaningful, that defines who you are and what it is that you do. And as a result, I think that gives you an edge on other people that might have a press release of similar newsworthiness, but all of a sudden, they see that and they go like, this gives you an edge.
I can see. So this is where I'm trying to mentally tease out how to position the press release for maximum chances of acceptance. So for instance, I think if it would seem to me, if I was a journalist and somebody's telling me about a new product or service, to me, it would seem like it can't come across as self-serving. Like, you've got to provide some value as to why people want to know about this and how it will benefit people. And then therefore the journalist can be like, it would seem, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, the journalists would kind of be feel like they're part of this cutting edge of providing value to their listeners, because here's something useful, or they're not their listeners, they're readers, whatever, that's valuable. And then similarly, like with a personal story, I'm trying to think of like, if I'm a journalist and someone's telling me about this story of overcoming these obstacles to start a business, um, I guess I'm wondering like, would that journalist have the intent of using that for some sort of like inspiring message, or like what would be a purpose of something like that? Like how should I guess what I'm wondering is like, how does a business owner think through how to position that press release most effectively?
Right. So, um, a lot of times the story is not the main focus. It might be your new company and you're talking about your company. And then within the press release, you share that vulnerable story.
Okay.
It just helps to create more of that story arc that they're looking for, but it also really exposes a vulnerability that makes you, more of like the hero journey, the more of like, wow, I can really identify with this person. And I think that, you really have to sort of look at what you're working with and what you're really announcing. Generally the story in and of itself is often not the focus of the press release. It can in some cases be that, but often it's something that's added as a layer to something else, like you've just launched or you're celebrating your 5th anniversary, and then you also include that story. It just gives another experience that provides a lens on the world that here is someone who is more than just a company, more than a brand and a logo, but there's actual people behind it, and that they're telling something that people can either identify with or empathize with and feel. People generally like to feel, and I think that people also like to relate to other people rather than relating to products and corporations and things like that. For those reasons, I think that the story is a really valuable thing. I had one client who had done really well growing their business, but they shared that when they were really starting out, that they basically canceled Thanksgiving, and the whole family had to work in the garage doing fulfillment, so that when I don't know if it was UPS or whoever opened Monday, they'd be able to get product out, because they just got swamped with sales, and they were really concerned that they weren't going to get them out in time. And I said we should add that to the press release that we were working on, and they were like really against it, because they're like, oh, it doesn't seem professional. And we did it, and Inc. magazine ended up writing a 2-page article about them and their growth, but they led the article by talking about them having to cancel Thanksgiving. And the client still didn't figure out, why is that interesting? And I'm just like, every entrepreneur identifies with people making blunders or being overwhelmed, and it's one of the times where the whole family rallies together, and it's something that people who are entrepreneurs experience, and it's something that they've dealt with, if not exactly, something similar. And I think that it really drew people in and humanized you and made you want to read the rest of the article about your growth and the lessons that you've learned as you've grown over time. And sometimes the things that people don't think about are the things that can particularly give you an edge. And so many people just upload a release and send it out, and you have the opportunity to include 2 images. It used to be that everybody would do like the stock photo type things that were just very, I don't know, sterile, or a product photo where it looks like it's done on velvet and perfect lighting and stuff like that. But, a lot of these articles get placed online, and the photos that people generally engage with are the ones where they just see other people. So if you have candid photos of your clients using your product, or candid photos of your staff or something like that, those are going to do really well. And if you're sending out a release and a journalist is looking at two releases that are similar newsworthiness, but yours has a couple of great photos, they're going to lean towards yours because they know when it does get posted online, that including images like that are going to be more engaging for their audience. And again, that gives you a little bit of an edge when it comes to getting picked up as a result.
I love that, man. So I got two last questions. One is like, in traditional, like say direct marketing where you're sending postcards or mailers or whatever, there's a general rule that you got to have multiple exposures before someone's going to pay you any mind. Is the same thing true with PR releases? Like you really got to give it like a fair shot. Don't just give it like one shot, or could you really just try it once and see if it works? And then also along with that is like, what should somebody expect to kind of pay or invest per PR? Like, and I don't know if that's even something you can generalize.
Sure. So I always tell people, commit to a PR campaign, not a press release. Most press releases do fail. But if you do strategic releases and you do a campaign of say 6 to 8 press releases, you probably should see 2 or 3 of those get media pickup. And again, you're doing strategic types of releases, and you're not doing the average, product launch release that's just features. You're not doing a new hire who isn't an industry executive or a new president or CEO. You're doing releases that engage and are more meaningful. And what the cost of that is really just the cost of writing and sending out 6 to 8 releases. You don't have to do them all at once. You don't have to do one a month. Maybe you're doing one every other month, or maybe you're doing one a quarter. So it might take you a year and a half to get through 6 releases, or 2 years to get through 8 releases. But generally, I tell people to commit to a PR campaign, test different types of releases and figure out which ones work. And often when a release works, you can sort of replicate it. You can build off of it. And I've had that work really well for a lot of clients. One client who did a survey that worked really well now does an annual survey, and people look forward to it, and they're known as the survey guys. And they were just a sort of like a roundup website, almost like a review website. And now they really have a great brand, and they're recognized throughout the industry. And every time they do a survey, they get 10 to 14 articles every time. And that drives eyeballs, it drives visitors, it drives SEO improvements and sales as a result of that. So the cost of something like that, if you use a service like eReleases, doing like 6 to 8 releases, you could buy a package, and even if you added writing, you would be well under $5,000 for a whole PR campaign of 6 to 8 releases. If you're willing to write them yourselves, press releases are not that difficult. We have a lot of guidance on the website and things like that. You probably could be under $3,500 to do 6 to 8 releases. So it really doesn't have to be cost prohibitive. It does take a little bit of time, but I think if you're engaging and willing to be creative and try strategic types of releases, and I know I've mentioned that a few times, if you want to figure out what are strategic types of releases, I have a free masterclass where in less than an hour, I break down the types of strategic releases people should consider. And that's a great place to start if you're not really used to PR or haven't had it work for you. And that's at ereleases.com/plan, PLAN, completely free. And I think that would be, really appropriate for people who want to learn, what I mean by strategic releases, and, that giving you that creative difference and likelihood of media pickup.
Love it, man. That's awesome. And so my last question, you kind of already gave me the answer, is like, where do people find out more about you? So it's ereleases, plural.com.
Right. Yeah, that's our website, and all of our social media is on the lower right. Feel free to call or chat or email. We only have editors, no salespeople. There's no commissions. We're pretty much straight shooters. If we feel like things are going to work for you, we'll always take a look at a release or an idea that you have and give you our feedback as well. We really do help people, do their first releases, help them through their first PR campaign, and try to educate them as well. And That's the exciting part. When we do 10,000 plus releases a year, I get to see the releases that work, and take that education and pass that back along to customers, hoping that they'll do those more meaningful strategic releases.
I love it, man. Well, dude, thank you for pulling back the curtain on press releases and PR campaigns. I really enjoyed that we talked about like what kinds of things make a good press release. What are some of the things to avoid? How to wrap it in a story? The way that the distribution platform works. You talked about keywords. You talked about industries. We talked about the cost, frequency, all these kinds of things, I think. And now with your free resource, people can dive more into that if they are interested, and they can reach out to you for your services as well. Listen, I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Life in Air Show. As always, our purpose, our goal is to help you live the life you want. And if marketing is something that can help your business get more clients or customers, that again allows you to now live your vision, then we have succeeded. If you've liked the episode, give us a thumbs up, give us a review, share this with a friend. This is how we can change the world around us, simply by sharing what we are learning and moving that forward in advance. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.